Go back to that 50 Cent post. And I'm gonna tell you why 50 is literally is a diabolical genius.
Now, I ain't never had a conversation with these I don't know these I know your name, I seen your video. Other than that, we ain't got no business together. We ain't got no reason to even be talking to each other.
It's hard to imagine the level of drama that unfolded when 50 Cent decided to pull the ultimate power move. And trust us, this wasn't just another petty rap beef. This was calculated chaos, the kind of move that sent shockwaves through an entire industry. And it all started with those tapes. Yes, those tapes. The ones that didn't just stir the pot, they flipped the entire table over. Nobody saw it coming. Not Rick Ross, not the label executives, not the artists who suddenly found themselves caught in the crossfire. This wasn't just a diss track or a Twitter feud. This was nuclear, and the fallout is still raining down.
This guy is
50's not to be
No, don't
50's not to be
with Fifth. Y'all don't even, Fifth
play
is
around
different.
if you want to.
Fifth is different.
And he's on tour.
For a moment, let's rewind to the man behind it all, 50 Cent, Curtis Jackson. Isn't just a rapper, he's a strategist, a tactician, the kind of guy who plays chess while everyone else is fumbling with checkers. And for years, he was quietly laying the groundwork. While Rick Ross was flaunting his Wingstop deals and flexing his lavish lifestyle, 50 was sitting back, watching, waiting. A cryptic Instagram post here, a sly comment there, and then just when Ross thought the coast was clear, 50 dropped the hammer. It wasn't just a move, it was a statement, a declaration of war. And the industry, it was completely unprepared. The tapes themselves are the stuff of legend, or infamy, depending on who you ask. Allegedly, they expose everything Ross has tried so hard to keep under wraps. We're talking about behind-the-scenes dealings, moments that were never supposed to see the light of day, and the timing, impeccable. Ross was at the height of his empire-building phase, signing deals and pushing his brand into every corner of the culture. He was untouchable, or so he thought. 50's release wasn't just a jab, it was a gut punch, a move designed to bring Ross's entire house of cards crashing down. And boy, did it work.
Well, no. Mixtapes? He wouldn't even be making a mixtape because I invented that. But there's no significance in that.
The initial leak was enough to set the internet on fire. But the aftermath? That's where things got really messy. Within hours, phones were ringing in record label offices across the country. Executives scrambled to control the narrative, calling emergency meetings that stretched long into the night. PR teams were on high alert, drafting statements, issuing denials, and trying to figure out just how deep this rabbit hole went. And the artists? Well, let's just say the silence from some quarters was deafening. Some quietly unfollowed Ross on social media. Others went into full-blown damage control, scrubbing any trace of their affiliations. It was like watching a sinking ship from the safety of the shore. Chaotic, tragic, and utterly fascinating. But perhaps the most shocking reaction came from Ross himself. If you thought he'd take the high road, think again. His response wasn't just offensive, it was downright explosive. In a series of now infamous Instagram rants, Ross lashed out at 50 Cent, his voice dripping with fury and desperation. And he didn't deny the tapes outright, but he didn't confirm them either. Instead, he deflected, throwing out accusations of his own, dragging up old skeletons, and threatening to expose secrets that, frankly, nobody was asking for. It was the kind of meltdown that made people wonder just how much truth there was to 50's claims. After all, if Ross had nothing to hide, why was he so rattled?
There's different things that's not really beef though. That's just competitive.
Competitiveness.
All right. So you and Diddy, you and Puff cool?
No, I don't really rock with him
okay,
like that.
damn.
The ripple effects didn't stop there. As the story gained traction, whispers started circulating about who else might be implicated. This wasn't just about Ross anymore. This was about the entire ecosystem he operated in. Producers, collaborators, and even executives began distancing themselves, some issuing vague statements about integrity and transparency, while others simply disappeared from public view altogether. And then there were those who leaned into the chaos, like Meek Mill, who liked one of 50's posts, or Future, who shared a not-so-subtle clip of 50's iconic track, Many Men. It was clear the industry was choosing sides, and Ross was losing allies fast. Meanwhile, 50 Cent was basking in the chaos, playing the puppet master with a grin on his face. He didn't just drop the tape and walk away. Oh no. He stoked the flames, teasing that there was more to come, that the first leak was just the tip of the iceberg, and that's all it took to send the rumor mill into overdrive. What else did he have? Who else was involved? The uncertainty was enough to keep everyone on edge, checking their mentions, rethinking their public associations, and wondering if they might be next. It wasn't just a scandal, it was a reckoning, a moment that forced everyone to confront the reality of a business built on optics, hype, and carefully constructed personas.
Interestingly, we haven't seen the indictments yet. There's been some time lag. I suppose it will take some time to go through all the forensic.
But let's not forget the wildest detail of all. The tapes themselves weren't just about Ross. There were whispers that they implicated others, high-profile names who'd been caught on camera in compromising situations. And while none of those names have been confirmed, the speculation alone was enough to send shockwaves through the industry. Suddenly, everyone was a suspect. Every public figure with ties to Ross or his circle found themselves under scrutiny, their every move dissected and analyzed. It was like a game of whodunit, except the stakes were careers, reputations, and legacies. Still, the most unsettling part of this saga isn't the tapes themselves, it's the questions they raise. How did 50 get his hands on them? Who filmed them and why? Were they ever meant to see the light of day, or were they just another example of the industry's darker underbelly? These aren't just tapes. They're evidence of a world that thrives on secrecy, where power dynamics and unspoken rules dictate everything. And if 50 has more where that came from, well, let's just say the fallout is far from over.
The documentary, I think a lot of people thought that he was just joking around. It turns out he's not. So this is actually a real project that's being made under his G-Unit movie and TV.
For now, though, the focus remains on Ross, whose empire seems to be crumbling faster than anyone could have predicted. His attempts to control the narrative have only made things worse, and his erratic behavior has left even his staunchest supporters questioning their loyalty. It's a stark contrast to the confident, larger-than-life persona he's cultivated over the years, a reminder that in this game, nothing is ever as it seems. And with 50 continuing to fan the flames, it's clear that this story is far from over. In fact, it feels like we're only just getting started. And just when you thought things couldn't possibly get darker, the story takes a turn so twisted, it feels ripped straight from the most scandalous midnight tabloid. The tapes weren't just explosive, they were radioactive. The kind of evidence that doesn't just ruin reputations, but detonates them, leaving nothing but scorched earth behind. And as more whispers began to surface about what these tapes actually contained, the focus shifted. This wasn't just about Ross anymore. No, this was starting to look like a much bigger, much uglier web of lies, manipulation, and betrayal. And at the very center of it all, a growing suspicion that these tapes were never meant to be exposed. At least not like this.
Wait a minute, say that again. Say that again, back up. You're saying that there's tapes and they're being shopped?
Yes, there have been people already shopping.
We've heard about the tapes, but
yes.
The shopping thing is
yes, there already have been tapes leaking around Hollywood, being shopped around to individuals in Hollywood, but one particular person contacted me to shop a particular video they were in possession of.
What made these revelations even more sinister was the method of their recording. Allegedly, 50 Cent didn't just stumble onto these tapes by accident. These weren't some random leaks from a disgruntled employee or a careless mistake by someone in Ross's camp. No, these recordings were intentional, deliberate, and meticulously orchestrated. We're talking hidden devices, conversations captured without consent, and moments that were never supposed to leave the walls they happened in. The tapes were a treasure trove of secrets, but they also raised massive ethical and legal questions. Who was behind the camera? And more importantly, who was pulling the strings? It didn't take long for speculation to land squarely on Diddy. Yes, Sean Diddy. Combs, the man who's been no stranger to controversy himself, suddenly found his name bubbling up in the rumor mill. The whispers became louder, suggesting that Diddy had long been notorious for hosting gatherings where privacy was, let's just say, optional. These weren't just ordinary get-togethers. They were high-profile events attended by A-listers, industry executives, and rising stars desperate to make their mark. And if the rumors are to be believed, these parties had one unspoken rule. What happens here stays here. Until now.
He is very, very dominant. Like, he wants to control the situation. He wants to control his inner circle. He wants to make everyone have a good time and enjoy his parties. And so, you know, it is scary because you think, you know, this person or possibly his social network or the people he's around could make or break your career.
And then there's the peculiar case of the so-called baby oil bottles. While the details remain murky, sources close to the investigation have suggested that these items could be connected to what insiders are now calling Diddy's freak-off gatherings. These weren't casual parties, but carefully curated events where everything, down to the lighting, the music, and even the beverages, was allegedly designed to lower inhibitions. Some of the attendees, according to subsequent lawsuits, didn't even realize they were being recorded, which only adds to the mounting legal nightmare. If it's proven that these tapes were created without consent, the implications won't just be career-ending, they could come with criminal charges that stretch far beyond the music industry. What complicates things further is that these allegations against Diddy didn't just come out of nowhere. Over the past year, his legal troubles have piled up in a way that feels almost too calculated. Like the dam finally broke and all the buried secrets came rushing out at once. It started with Cassie's explosive lawsuit, which painted a horrifying picture of a man obsessed with control, manipulation, and intimidation. Her claims weren't just about their toxic relationship, but outlined a decade of alleged emotional and physical torment. While Diddy's team scrambled to settle the matter within a day, the damage was already done. It was like someone had cracked open a door that had been locked for years. And suddenly, everyone else who had stayed silent started stepping forward.
Did he? Or didn't he? Well, if he didn't, he's got a lot to explain. Well, apparently what Diddy's done now, which is a very interesting thing, is he's on the offensive of sorts. That's right, Sean Diddy Combs has initiated a $100 million defamation lawsuit.
Among the most shocking allegations to surface was a claim made by an anonymous woman who accused Diddy and his longtime associate of orchestrating an unimaginable act of violence at his Manhattan recording studio. The lawsuit described an incident where the plaintiff, barely out of her teens at the time, was allegedly coerced into staying overnight under the guise of business opportunities. What happened next, according to her, was a series of events so calculated, so cold, that it left even the most hardened industry insiders stunned. The woman claimed she was plied with substances and left disoriented, only to find herself surrounded by individuals she trusted and betrayed by them in the worst way possible. Images from that night, allegedly captured on Diddy's personal devices, were said to still exist, adding yet another layer of complexity to the ongoing investigations. Allegations surfaced that Diddy's sprawling mansions weren't just playgrounds for the rich and famous, they were surveillance hubs. Hidden cameras, microphones tucked away in unsuspecting corners, and an entire archive of footage that served one very specific purpose: leverage. Imagine the power of having that kind of material at your fingertips. A discreet nod, a subtle threat, and suddenly, deals are signed, partnerships are secured, and silence is bought. If these tapes were part of Diddy's alleged playbook, it would explain a lot. But it also begged the question, if he was the one collecting these recordings, how did they end up in 50's hands? That's where the story gets even murkier.
So yesterday, on Monday, Diddy celebrated his 55th birthday, but this year was a lot different. It was no Diddy parties. It was none of that. None of that stuff. Well, happily, so I guess right now. But anyway, so this is his first birthday behind bars.
Theories began to swirl like wildfire. Some claimed that a former associate of Diddy's, someone who had grown tired of playing second fiddle, was the one who handed the tapes over to 50. Others suggested that this wasn't just about Ross or Diddy, but a much larger power struggle within the industry itself. Think about it. The music business has always been a cutthroat arena where alliances shift like quicksand and loyalty is a rare commodity. Was this an act of sabotage, a calculated move to take down not just one, but two of hip-hop's most powerful figures? Or was it something even darker, a revenge plot years in the making? And let's not forget the government's sudden interest in all of this. When federal agents raided one of Diddy's properties earlier this year, it was initially brushed off as routine. But now, in light of these tapes, the timing feels anything but coincidental. Reports emerged that during the raid, agents seized hundreds, yes, hundreds, of bottles labeled as baby oil. On the surface, it seemed like a bizarre detail, almost laughable. But then came the allegations that these bottles weren't what they appeared to be. Insiders hinted that their contents had been sent off for testing and the results could be damning. Whatever was in those bottles, it wasn't something you'd find on the shelves of your local pharmacy.
So that's where Diddy has been for months now, but last week he was taken to the hospital. According to reports from the New York Post, Diddy was transported from MDC in the cover of darkness at about 10 p.m. on January 30th. He was taken to a Brooklyn hospital for an MRI after reporting issues with his knee.
Now consider this. If those bottles were connected to the tapes in any way, it would open a Pandora's box of legal and ethical nightmares. Were they props in some of the recorded footage? Evidence of something far more nefarious happening behind closed doors? The implications were staggering, and the silence from Diddy's camp only fueled the speculation. While his legal team scrambled to stay ahead of the narrative, insiders claimed that even his most trusted allies were starting to distance themselves. When someone like Diddy, arguably one of the most influential figures in entertainment, starts losing support, you know the stakes are higher than anyone could have imagined. And then there's Ross. If he thought he was the only one under fire, he was sorely mistaken. The tapes didn't just implicate him, they painted a picture of an industry where rules didn't apply, where power was the ultimate currency, and where everyone, no matter how big or small, was a potential pawn in someone else's game. Ross's attempts to reclaim the narrative were futile. His erratic behavior, his threats against 50 Cent, and his increasingly desperate social media posts only made him look more guilty. And as more details emerged about his alleged involvement in shady dealings, the walls started closing in.
Well, it's been told that there was a sort of beef between you and 50 Cent.
Is it a beef? I'm asking you.
Well, I don't know for sure.
What beef? You heard music beef?
No, I've heard the music beef.
So, you know, Rick Ross led Triller this March 11th.
Even as Ross fought to keep his empire intact, the ripple effects of the scandal continued to spread. Major brands began quietly reassessing their partnerships, wary of being associated with the growing controversy. Collaborators who had once touted their affiliations with Ross and Diddy suddenly went silent, deleting old posts and issuing carefully worded statements about integrity and transparency. It was a full-blown exodus, and it left both men more isolated than ever before. The same industry that had built them up was now tearing them down, piece by piece. But the most chilling aspect of all, the tapes were allegedly just the beginning. Rumors persisted that 50 Cent had more material, enough to send shockwaves through the industry for years to come. And if the first leak was designed to take down Ross, what could the rest of the archive reveal? Were there other high-profile names waiting to be exposed? Other secrets that could rewrite the history of one of the most influential industries in the world? The uncertainty was enough to send even the most powerful players into a panic. If 50 was holding all the cards, then no one, not Diddy, not Ross, not anyone, was safe.
Because Big Meech did this video with Rick Ross and got cool with Rick Ross.
Fact.
So this is a new decision, is that he's going to put out
brand
this.
new.
Wow.
See, this is how this works, right?
And so the question remains, how deep does this go? Is this just the story of two men brought down by their own hubris, or is it a glimpse into something much larger, much darker? There's no doubt that the fallout will continue with more revelations, more scandals, and more lives turned upside down. But for now, one thing is clear. The game has changed and the rules no longer apply. Let us know what you think down below. Are we just scratching the surface here, or is this the beginning of the end for some of hip-hop's biggest power players? As always, stay tuned. This is one story that's far from over.